we're in Greenville, South Carolina, foraging for USNEA lichen, which is also commonly called old man's beard. And the kind that we have here in upstate South Carolina that's most common, the species, is called USNEA strigosa, which really doesn't look too much like an old man's beard, actually.
Maybe it's like an old man's sideburn or an old woman's armpit hair.
It's kind of gross, but yeah, more like that than an old man's beard. Now you might be wondering why anyone would be interested in foraging for lichen.
Or what it is, or why you should even care about it.
Well, stick with us and prepare to have your mind blown, because you're about to find out why lichen is one of the most amazing and important life forms on the planet.
And we're going to teach you how to fish. He hates this acronym because he says that sustainably harvest is 2 words, but find, identify, and sustainably harvest.
Yeah, that's be fish?
Fish, F-I-S-H.
Either way, okay, you're going to find that out. Then we'll show you how to use USNEA in your kitchen, or how to use it as an emergency first aid kit in the woods. We're mesmerized by lichen, and we think you will be too once you learn a little bit more about it. So to get started, we want to share 6 amazing lichen facts that we think will get your wonder machine whirring.
Number 1, lichens are one of the most successful life forms on Earth. They've been around for over 400 million years.
410 million at least.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess what's another 10 million?
Yeah.
And there are over 10,000 species. They can live in all kinds of climates, from tropical rainforests to Arctic tundras. Oh, and on rocks.
Yeah, that's why we're sitting here. Because we're sitting surrounded by lichen. Pretty cool.
What are they, endolithic?
Endolithic lichens, or lichens that actually grow into rocks, between the grains of rocks. So we have all kinds of different species here that we'll show you. The only place on Earth that lichen can't grow is the Antarctic. But other than that, you can find lichen everywhere. The second amazing lichen fact is that lichen can live to be thousands of years old, but it's also incredibly slow growing. The oldest living lichen on Earth may be over 10,000 years old, and it's growing on an island in northern Alaska. And if it is that old, it would be potentially the oldest living organism on Earth. As for being slow growing, some lichen can only grow 1 millimeter per year. So that's pretty cool to think about, because that might mean that the lichen that's growing on this rock might have been also growing at the same time that Native Americans were sitting here thousands of years ago, flint knapping, and making a projectile point like this Mora Mountain, which is about 7,000 years old.
And maybe enjoying a fire because it's cold.
It is cold. Now that old age and steady growth is a really cool thing to think about if you're a scientist, because you might be trying to figure out how old a stone is, or how long it's been exposed to the elements. So you can use a technique called lichenometry, which is not trigonometry, it's actually the study. So once you know that a species lichen grows, let's say 1 millimeter a year, you measure how big it is, and then you can reverse that back to figure out how long that stone is, or how long that lichen has been growing. So for instance, the moye, if I'm pronouncing that right, in Easter Island, the big figurines, heads made of stone that are on Easter Island, scientists have figured out the date of those by using lichenometry. Now the unfortunate side of that is the lichen is also eating the stone, so it's also destroying the stones at the same time that's helping scientists measure their age. The fact that it takes lichen so long to grow is also one of the reasons it's important to harvest it sustainably, which we'll be discussing here in just a moment.
Amazing fact number 3, lichens make land on Earth possible. If you like being a terrestrial earthling, meaning above the soil, then you owe a big thanks to lichen. Lichens were some of the earliest pioneer species who were able to move from the ocean to rocks and coastal tide zones, then inland. And that happened at least 410 million years ago. By chemically weathering stone, using their acids, trapping dust and organic matter, lichens created some of the first soil on Earth.
Scientists think that plants adapted to terrestrial life before lichen did, but lichens are still critical for those early soils, and they're also still critical to ecosystems today. They cycle all kinds of nutrients, from carbon to nitrogen. They also build organic matter in soils, as she's already mentioned. So still as critical to life on Earth today as they were when life was getting started on Earth.
Which brings us to fact number 4. Lichens are amazing air quality indicators.
Since lichens absorb water and nutrients from the air, they're also really sensitive to air quality. So if there's a big factory nearby, or an interstate with a bunch of exhaust, or inside of a city, you're not going to see a lot of lichen biodiversity. You might see a few species, but you're not going to see something like USNEA growing.
And if you start to notice lichens disappearing from your yard, you should probably be a little concerned.
Time to worry. And number 5, and this is a myth buster, is that lichens are not parasitic to plants. So we hear people say a lot of times that, oh, the lichen's killing my tree, or the usnea is killing a tree in my yard. This is not the case. What's happening is lichen is using only the tree for like a scaffolding, basically an anchor point, and it's photosynthesizing. So not taking any nutrients or any water from the tree. So what's happening is the tree probably is just naturally dying or becoming sick, and the lichen is proliferating as a result of getting more sunlight. So again, lichen is not killing your trees.
Number 6, and we saved the best for last here. Lichens are a combination of species from completely different kingdoms, making up a single emergent organism. Each lichen contains a fungus that helps with structure, moisture control, and protection. This is called the microbiont.
Each lichen also contains an alga or a cyanobacterium, and that functions for photosynthesis, and that is called the photosynthetic microbiont or the photobiont.
Many species of lichens also have bacterial partners, as well as additional fungal partners within the organism.
Yeah. There's actually a species in South America that scientists discovered that might have up to 400 different individual species within the same lichen.
And here's the thing. Lichen's multi-species complexity isn't strange, it's normal. For instance, every complex cell in your body contains mitochondria, descendants of ancient bacteria that merged with another cell more than 1 billion years ago. Without that partnership, complex life as we know it wouldn't exist.
Likewise, trees depend on fungal networks beneath the soil to gather nutrients. In the ocean, coral is actually a colony of animals that depend on algae living inside their tissues.
Animals, including us, depend on trillions of microbes to digest food, regulate immunity, and maintain health. In modern biology, there's a term for this, the holobiont. The holobiont is an organism plus all of its microbial partners functioning together as a unit.
What we call an individual is often a community. Zoom out further. A forest isn't just trees, it's fungi, bacteria, insects, animals, and plants exchanging nutrients, signals, and energy within a mutualistic economy.
The boundaries blur. Life doesn't just compete, it collaborates, it merges, it integrates. The more closely we look, the more the edges dissolve.
What we see isn't just isolated beings struggling alone. We see systems nested within systems, partnerships stacked inside partnerships.
And lichens, clinging quietly to rock and bark, are simply one of the clearest reminders that individuality may be less solid than we once believed.
Now that you've fallen in love with lichen,
Hopefully.
let's go through the 4-point Untamed Eats framework for safely identifying usnea.
Number 1, geographic range.
Where is it, and does it grow where you are?
Number 2, season.
What time of year is it, and does the thing that you're looking for grow or fruit during the season in which you're looking?
Number 3, key identifying features.
So that could be like morphology or certain key features that you can use to distinguish the thing you're looking for from other close lookalikes.
Which brings us to number 4, warnings and poisonous lookalikes.
And that can be anything. Is it safe for you to eat in your particular situation? Are there any particular warnings about overconsumption or maybe particular allergies? And are there any poisonous lookalikes to the thing that you're looking for? A quick side note, our mission is to help people connect to ecology through food. If you like the video that you're watching and the content we're sharing, please click the subscribe button below to make sure you never miss an Untamed Eats video.
Food adventure.
Food adventure. Back to the 4-point framework, let's start with number 1, which is the geographic range. So usnea can grow pretty much anywhere in the world where there is a forest. That could be a jungle in the tropics, could be a temperate climate forest like the one that we're in right now. There are over 100 usnea species in the world, and we are within the range of where we might expect to find usnea, so we can check that one off the list.
Number 2, seasonality. Fortunately, it doesn't really matter as much for usnea because it can be found in any season. It can be foraged when it's hot, when it's cold, whenever, as long as it's, I guess, comfortable for you to be outside.
Number 3 is key identifying features, and this is where we can really start to zoom in on identifying usnea properly. And let's start by talking about the growth forms of lichen, which we've already started to kind of go through a little bit on this video.
There are 3 primary growth forms of lichens, which can help you better identify them. The first of these types is crustose. These have a crusty growth form.
The second type is foliose lichens, which have a leafy growth form.
The third type is fruticose lichens. These are shrubby or hair-like. There are other less common lichen growth forms as well, but we're keeping things simple here.
Usnea lichens are fruticose lichens. See how it's a shrubby hair-like lichen?
What other features of usnea can help with the ID? Next, usnea always attaches to trees at a single point. We're good there.
Next, if you took a cross-section of an Usnea branch, it would be round in shape, not flat. You can see that with the naked eye, or a bit better here under a microscope.
We're good there.
Now a bit of bad news. Even scientists who are trying to differentiate the exact species of lichens when there's close lookalikes can sometimes get a bit confused, even with Usnea. So that might come down to, if you're trying to get an exact species ID, doing a spore measurement under a microscope or an advanced technique like thin layer chromatography.
Of course. Obviously, most people aren't going to do that. Including us.
Yeah. Babe, where's the thin layer chromatographer?
It's with your keys.
Okay. Where are my keys? Now the good news with Usnea is you don't have to.
And that's because all species in the Usnea genus can be identified by one key identifying feature. All Usnea has an elastic fungal cord running through the middle of the thallus and branches that can be revealed by gently pulling a branch apart from either end, like you see here. This feature is most evident when the Usnea is damp. The smaller filaments of branches can get kind of crunchy when they dry out. But you can still see that cord in the middle, which is made of fungal hyphae.
A quick aside, our family loves our N&Star digital microscope. If you want one for your family and you're watching this video on your TV, just use the QR code on your screen to start shopping. Or you can use the affiliate link in the video description. So if you have a fruticose lichen growing on a tree and it has an internal white cord, you have Usnea.
Should we do a chest bump?
Do you want to? Okay.
Ow! Oh. Here in upstate South Carolina, Usnea strigosa is our most commonly found species. But there's another less common, virtually identical cryptic Usnea species called Usnea endocrisia that you can only tell apart with a chemical test and or spore measurement. We're not bothering because both species can be used interchangeably.
Usnea strigosa, like this one, is a relatively small and compact species of Usnea compared to Usnea growing in other regions of the world. Usnea strigosa primarily grows on the branches of oak trees here, but it can also grow on other hardwood species as well. We've also seen it growing on pine trees, so it's not strictly limited to hardwood species.
Another cool feature you might notice on Usnea strigosa that don't occur on every Usnea species are these disc-shaped formations on some of the branches. These are called apothecia. They are the reproductive organs of the fungal component of Usnea, which is a species of Ascomycota.
Apothecia aren't always present on Usnea strigosa, so their absence doesn't necessarily mean a lichen you're trying to identify isn't an Usnea strigosa.
Apothecium.
Very cool.
This is really cool because if you're like us, you might have wondered how a holobiont species composed of multiple species manages to reproduce itself.
The answer is that Usnea and other lichen species reproduce both sexually and asexually. Asexual reproduction involves small pieces of the lichen breaking off or being torn off during storms and finding another spot where they can grow.
So it'd be kind of like my hair shedding and like little pieces of me sprouting up everywhere my hair sheds?
Yes.
Oh, that's creepy. When Usnea strigosa sexually reproduces, the fungal partner, or mycobiont, develops these apothecia, which release spores into the environment, a small percentage of which lands on spots suitable for growth. If these spores can then find and cultivate the right algal partners in the division chlorophyta, they'll continue developing.
So those apothecia are a good way to identify Usnea strigosa, not always, and they also help you understand how this particular species of lichen, and Usnea in particular, does what scientists refer to as the hanky-panky. That was a good one.
Just because you're a dad doesn't mean you need to make dad jokes.
Okay. Point number 4 in the Untamed Eats framework for safely identifying wild foraged foods and medicines is warnings and poisonous lookalikes. As for warnings, let's start by saying we think you should look at Usnea more as a potential medicine than a food source.
It's not something that we'd recommend you eat raw or in large quantities even if cooked. And it's not something that we'd recommend you eat daily over a long period of time.
That's because Usnea contains what's called usnic acid. The concentration varies depending on the species of Usnea, anywhere from like 0.5% to 6%. And usnic acid, consumed over a long period of time or in high doses, can actually cause liver damage. So we are pro-liver, so we would not advise eating a lot of it. However, used medicinally in small amounts on occasion, Usnea is proving, including usnic acid, to have some positive beneficial effects on things like killing gram-positive bacteria or boosting the immune system and killing infectious pathogens that might be like a lung infection or a sore throat. It's also important to note that ooznic acid is not water soluble. It is fat soluble and alcohol soluble. So if you're making an Usnea tea, you're
Which
not...
smells amazing, by the way.
Does smell really good. Also tastes really good. You're not going to be getting very much ooznic acid in the tea. Again, it's not going into the water. In tea form, you're mostly going to be ingesting the Usnea's water-soluble polysaccharides, which are basically like a complex carbohydrate. And those polysaccharides will give your immune system a big boost.
Whoa. This is why herbalists call Usnea lung lichen. It can really help fight respiratory infections.
It's also worth pointing out another really beneficial use of Usnea, which is as a disinfectant and wound healing. So if you're out in the forest and you get a cut and you don't have a first aid kit, you could chew up some Usnea in your mouth and apply it as a poultice onto the wound, and it keeps it from getting infected, and also that really accelerates the healing process.
Does Usnea have any poisonous lookalikes?
It does around the world, but not here, thankfully. There are two poisonous lookalikes in the United States to Usnea, and those are wolf lichen and powdered sunshine lichen. Those two poisonous lookalikes are sort of bright yellow. Number one, they're on the west coast, as already mentioned, and they also don't have that central cord running through them. So our Usnea is sort of light green to sort of whitish green, has that cord running in the middle of it. Same thing, so anytime you see the white cord inside of a filament of Usnea or inside a filament of a lichen, you have Usnea.
Now that you know how to identify Usnea, it's important to make sure that you do it sustainably. The way that we recommend doing it is to look for fallen branches after a storm. Of course, in case of emergency, you can take it off of a tree, but generally we look for fallen branches or fallen trees.
A quick side note, be sure to go to tyrantfarms.com/untamed-eats if you want to get our Usnea lichen quick guide. And you can also get other quick guides that we have on the website as well. These can be printed out and you can use them to build your own foraging book.
Now we're in our kitchen and we're going to show you two simple ways to use Usnea. The first option is to make an Usnea tea. Not only does it taste great, but it's also medicinal.
With the tea recipe, you're going to be extracting the water-soluble polysaccharides from the fungal component of the algae, but you're really not going to be getting much, if any, of the ooznic acid from the algal component of the lichen, because that is not water-soluble. That's either alcohol or fat-soluble. And the fact that ooznic acid is not water-soluble is why herbalists will often do a double decoction process whenever they're trying to make a medicine out of Usnea. So first they'll make a tea, and then they'll add alcohol to it at a certain concentration and basically let it sit for a month to extract those alcohol-soluble ooznic acid from the algal component. And we're sharing our simple Usnea tea recipe because it, again, is simple, easy to make, tastes great, smells great, also is medicinal, doesn't require any specialized equipment or knowledge. And
We're waiting.
We're waiting, so very quick. And it could be helpful if you have a sore throat or aches and pains and need a quick immune boost that you could make very quickly in your kitchen.
Our second recipe is a lacto-fermented Usnea using a traditional red cabbage sauerkraut as the catalyst for fermentation.
Another reason we like the lacto-fermented Usnea sauerkraut recipe, in theory, is that you're going to be extracting both the water-soluble polysaccharides and the alcohol-soluble ooznic acid, because during the fermentation process, the lactic acid bacteria, LAB, naturally produces ethanol as a byproduct, just a small amount. Obviously, sauerkraut is not like an alcoholic beverage or food, but there's probably, in our opinion, enough in there to at least extract some of that ooznic acid. And just to put this quickly into reference, and why we're keep talking about this, is by dry white, from what we've read in research studies, there's not a lot of ooznic acid in Usnea. There's somewhere between, like, depending on the species, maybe 0.5%, even less, up to maybe 6% maximum. So you're not going to be getting a lot of ooznic acid, and if you are putting it in something like a sauerkraut, it's going to be really distributed throughout there. So you're not going to get very much of it, but you're still getting just a medicinal dose in the small amount that you're going to be eating. And the reason that's important is you don't want to have high doses of ooznic acid or be using ooznic acid on a regular basis over a long duration. As we mentioned before, ooznic acid at high doses over a long period of time can actually cause liver damage. We don't want to do that. But again, medicinal doses are low doses, and those are actually beneficial.
We should also say that for every food on the planet, there's always someone who's allergic to it. So if you've never consumed Usnea lichen before, maybe start with a small dose, like tea form, just to make sure you don't have any adverse side effects. All right, let's start with our first thing, Usnea tea. The measurements here don't have to be super precise. You're just going to add about 1/4 cup of loosely packed dry Usnea per 2 cups of water. Add the ingredients to a small covered pot on your stovetop. Keep it at a low boil for at least 30 to 45 minutes, or up to 2 hours. although you may have to add additional water to the pot if you're going to go that long. After a while, you'll notice that the usnea produces a really wonderful smell, sort of grassy and woodsy and floral all at the same time. And the taste of usnea tea is very similar to the fragrance. We recommend adding a bit of liquid stevia or honey to the final tea. Cheers. Tasty.
Very tasty. Okay, now let's move on to the second recipe, which is lacto-fermented usnea sauerkraut.
And for this recipe, you're going to need the following materials. You'll need a kitchen scale that can measure ounces and grams, a large glass jar or fermentation crock. Don't use plastic or it'll leach into your food. You'll need a funnel, a sauerkraut tamper or similar tool to pack down the sauerkraut once it's in the jar. We use a cocktail muddler. You'll also need a fermentation weight that fits snugly into the container where you'll be doing your fermenting, a lid that allows the sauerkraut to burp, and a large bowl to massage your cabbage as you start the recipe. You only need 3 ingredients: 1 organic red cabbage, salt measured to 3% of the total weight of your cabbage, about ½ cup usnea measured loosely packed. This ingredient doesn't need to be measured as precisely as the salt, and you don't actually need it for another 2 weeks.
This recipe is a little bit more involved than the tea recipe, but bear with us. First, you're going to want to let your sauerkraut get about a 2-week head start before you add your usnea to it. And the reason you want to give your sauerkraut a 2-week head start before adding the usnea is because usnea is powerfully antimicrobial. So you want to make sure that the sauerkraut, the lactic acid bacteria in the sauerkraut, is basically at peak activity before adding your usnea, just to make sure that it can overcome any antimicrobial properties that the usnea might bring to bear on the sauerkraut. And a quick side note, it's absolutely insane to me that companies have convinced people to go out and buy expensive probiotic pills when for a small fraction of the price, you can just make your own highly potent, highly efficacious probiotic sauerkraut at home, which is way better and costs like a small fraction of what it would cost to get the pills.
You're ranting again. First, weigh your cabbage. Then weigh salt to 3% of your cabbage's total weight. You can go higher than 3% salt, but don't go lower. The higher saline environment helps promote lactic acid bacteria proliferation in your sauerkraut while impeding pathogenic microbes.
Next, dice your cabbage. Then place it in your bowl and add salt. Vigorously massage the salt into the cabbage for about 5 minutes. Yes, this is a good hand and forearm workout.
And it's a lucky cabbage. 5-minute massage. Transfer your salted, massaged cabbage into your glass jar or crock. Put the weight on top, then put your lid on. Let the fermentation develop at room temperature for about 14 days.
If you're using glass jars, you'll see the cabbage turn from a dark purple to more of a vibrant, bright pink purple color as the lactic acid levels rise within the first week.
Over that time window, you may need to occasionally press down firmly on the fermentation weight to make sure the cabbage at the top stays below the surface of the brine. The brine develops naturally as the salt extracts the water from the cells of the cabbage.
You do not want to add water to your ferment or you risk dropping the salinity level, which could then allow for pathogen development.
After 14 days, it's time to add your usnea.
Now, depending on how much fermented usnea you want to make or how much usnea you have available, you'll want to figure out the quantity and size of glass jars you'll need. We're making a small 8-ounce jar batch here, so I'm adding about 1/4 cup of loosely packed usnea in the bottom of the jar. Then spoon your sauerkraut into about 1/2 inch below the top of the jar, and make sure you're also adding brine from the original sauerkraut too, not just cabbage.
Then tamp down the sauerkraut so everything is packed tightly into the jar. The brine should just cover the surface of the cabbage if you add the right amount. Put a fermentation weight on top of the kraut, and then a fermentation lid or loose-fitting lid on the jar to allow it to burp.
Let everything sit for another 1 to 2 weeks at room temperature. So the full fermentation from start to finish is about 30 days.
Here again, you may need to occasionally press down the fermentation weight if you notice the cabbage at the top is starting to rise above the level of the brine.
After the usnea has been in the sauerkraut for 14 days, transfer the whole jar to your fridge, and it will last for many months. A lot better than a pill.
Now you know how to find, identify, sustainably harvest, and safely use USNEA lichen.
So is that fish eel?
It's fish owl.
Ow. Not funny.